The sinkhole on the walking trail in Marietta has been repaired and final adjustments are underway. The sinkhole first formed at the beginning of April as a result of deteriorated concrete pipes. The water reclamation plant installed a CIPP liner to repair the pipe. They will begin the site reclamation process next week, followed by replacing the missing sections of fence. Ryan Boley, water reclamation superintendent, says he appreciates the community's patience while repairs were being made.
I think they'll be very excited. I've been receiving phone calls almost daily asking when the trail is going to be open back up, and I've appreciated that the community has been as patient as possible. Whether something like this does not just happen in a month or two, there's a lot of engineering. They have to consider 100-year floodplains, things like that when they're designing this stuff, so to make sure it's able to withstand the pressure of a 100-year floodplain. So.
Boley says they plan to reopen the walking trail shortly after October 8th. They will also inspect the rest of the pipe to check for similar damage.